Who is Josh Rosen?
Josh Rosen had the most impressive true freshman performance of any player since 2000.
There are red flags in that you have to try to figure out if you can coach him, if he's coachable, and what kind of teammate he's going to be.
I think if you go back through his career as a football player, he's been questioned at every level.
This kid has had the worst luck since being drafted.
Not all first-round quarterbacks are created equal. Some sort of legendary heights.
The Colts of Indianapolis win Super Bowl 41.
While others, well, they disappear faster than expected.
Much faster.
It's over. Jamarcus Russell, done by the Raiders.
Josh Rosen was one of the latter. He may have been nicknamed Chosen Rosen, but he ended up having a terrible time in the NFL.
They're either playing a game and Josh Rosen is in on it, or they are creating irreparable damage to their young quarterback self-esteem. You do not do this.
Welcome back to Unlikely Success. Like, comment, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Today, we're diving into how Josh Rosen, a college star, wound up living an NFL nightmare. Josh Rosen had all the makings of a franchise quarterback when he walked onto campus at UCLA. He was a 5-star recruit and carried himself as a star, but this attitude had also turned off other major programs. As a freshman, he immediately lived up to the billing. His arm talent was obvious, and he had the size, footwork, and IQ that NFL scouts drool over. After beating out Jerry Neuheisel for the starting job, he became the first true freshman to start at UCLA. And he did not disappoint as he threw for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first game. He would go on to throw for over 3,600 yards and 23 touchdowns that season, receiving Pac-12 Freshman Offensive Player of the Year honors and being named a Freshman All-American.
Pretty good.
Rosen was poised, calm under pressure, and had that pro-ready label stamped on him early. UCLA head coach Jim Mora even went so far as to say he would have gone first when referring to where he believed Rosen stood amongst 2016 QB draft prospects. I can't see the Rams taking Rosen 1 that year, but what else is the coach supposed to say about his star QB? Mora also gave himself a disclaimer, saying that his young quarterback would need to continue to work hard to become one of the greats, so I won't hold this against the former UCLA head coach. Rosen was living up to expectations, but it got derailed as a shoulder injury shortened his sophomore season, and this would limit him to only 6 starts. When he returned from surgery in his junior year, it was with a vengeance, as he lit up Texas A&M with 491 yards and 4 touchdowns to open the season. He would go on to set several UCLA passing records that year, be named second team All-Pac-12, and at one point during the 2017 college football season, he was even being mocked as the #1 overall pick. By the time he finished his college career, despite the injuries and varied team success, Rosen had thrown for over 9,300 yards and 59 touchdowns. The hype was real.
Rosen fakes the spike in the end zone. Touchdown! Whoa!
Scouts and pundits labeled him as the most pro-ready quarterback in the 2018 NFL Draft.
Ultimately, I think he's the most gifted pocket passer in this class. I think he has a legit chance to be the first overall pick in this draft. It's going to really come down to teams interviewing him and getting to know him and figuring out, is he coachable, and does he love the game, and does he need the game of football? Because physically, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Rosen's game.
And they often considered him as part of the top 4 QB prospects, alongside Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Josh Allen. Personally, I think there was a 5th guy who probably should have gone #1 overall, but some thought he should play wide receiver. What? Anyway, as Rosen's NFL journey began, it became clear that his path would be much rockier than anyone had expected. Leading up to the 2018 NFL Draft, there were several mixed opinions about Rosen.
Just because your parents have been successful or been educated, that's not a detriment coming into the league, but how you position it and how you talk about it, I believe has been a negative for him.
I just think that's nonsense.
There are red flags in that you have to try to figure out if you can coach him, if he's coachable, and what kind of teammate he's going to be.
He is the best quarterback, to me, and I'm biased, but the best quarterback prospect since John Elway.
What did you say?
The best quarterback prospect since John Elway. You serious?
While his mechanics and football IQ were praised, some concerns about his leadership qualities and attitude started to surface. Remember earlier when I said that his attitude had turned off some programs? Well, that was now coming into focus as part of the pre-draft process. His confidence was often misconstrued as arrogance, and it seemed like teams were beginning to doubt if he had the mental makeup to thrive as a franchise quarterback. Think Aaron Rodgers, public perception-wise. That's the best way I can describe how he was framed as a leader. Nevertheless, the Arizona Cardinals took Rosen with the 10th overall pick in the draft, a pick they acquired by trading their 15th spot along with a 3rd and 5th round selection to the Raiders. He came in with high expectations. Very high expectations. This was supposed to be the franchise's next phase after the retirement of Carson Palmer. In his introductory press conference, Rosen made a now infamous statement.
There were 9 mistakes made ahead of me, and I will make sure over the next decade or so that they will know that they made a mistake.
If you look back, this could not have been a more inaccurate statement. 2 of the players drafted ahead of him just finished in the top 3 of last season's MVP voting. One is the best guard in football, one is a high-quality corner, and one is a top-tier linebacker. The closest thing you come to a, quote, mistake is Mike McGlinchey or Bradley Chubb, who have both been pretty quality starters. But it did feel like Rosen was out to prove the doubters wrong, and that is usually a good thing. The problem is, the NFL has a way of humbling young quarterbacks, and Rosen's transition would be very humbling. Rosen's rookie season in Arizona would be brutal. The original plan had logic, as Sam Bradford had been signed as a veteran mentor who could start while Josh developed. But that went sideways quickly, as Bradford struggled in his 3 starts and wound up being released by mid-season. Rosen was thrown into the fire behind what PFF ranked as the NFL's worst offensive line, and the results were ugly. Rosen went 3-10 as a starter, throwing for 11 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. It wasn't just the lack of wins or subpar passing numbers. It was also clear that Rosen struggled to adjust to the NFL's speed and complexity. I wouldn't call this all that different from most rookie QBs, but by the end of the season, the Cardinals were 3-13, and head coach Steve Wilks was fired after just 1 year. Arizona hired Cliff Kingsbury as their new coach, and when a new coach comes in, it becomes a tougher sell for the last regime's project quarterback to continue to be developed, especially when you have the first overall pick. Kingsbury wanted to implement a new offense, and he had his eyes on a different quarterback, Kyler Murray. Just 1 year after drafting Josh 10th overall, the Cardinals took Murray number 1 in 2019. Rosen, unsurprisingly, was immediately traded to the Miami Dolphins for their 2nd round pick in 2019 and a 5th in 2020. It's hard to say whether this would have happened if he had played better in 2018. Arizona was simply not a very well-constructed roster that year, and I think Kingsbury coming in was always going to mean Josh moving out. Rosen arrived in Miami with a chance at redemption, but it became pretty clear early on that the Dolphins weren't fully committed to him. Despite being a team in clear rebuild mode, they named Ryan Fitzpatrick the starter.
How much of this is a test by the Dolphins of Josh Rosen's ability to deal with the adversity that comes from not being the number 1 quarterback, not being the guy, not being the smartest guy in the room?
Rosen, when given a chance to start, once again struggled to show any real signs of being a long-term answer at quarterback. He played in just 6 games, going 0-3 as a starter, and by the end of the season, the Dolphins had turned back to veteran Ryan Fitzpatrick as the starter to finish things out. It wasn't just a bad situation in Miami though. Rosen failed to capitalize on his chances, often looking lost in the pocket, making poor decisions, and not showing the accuracy that had once made him a star at UCLA. His confidence had to have taken a hit from the way things played out in both stops. And as I said earlier, the NFL has a way of humbling players. Do you think Rosen would have fared better on the Browns, Jets, or Bills? I think at least 2 of those situations go similarly, and maybe even worse, if that's possible. After Miami, Rosen began bouncing around the NFL like a journeyman backup. He wound up spending time with the Buccaneers, 49ers, Falcons, and Browns. He never found a permanent home or even a meaningful role as a backup. Teams were no longer interested in developing him. He was seen as a project that had already failed. The league moves fast, and teams rarely give second chances to quarterbacks who failed to make an immediate impact, which is unfortunate because not all situations are created equal. Josh Rosen's fall from grace is a reminder of how brutal the NFL can be. He came into the league with all the tools and all the confidence of a star, but in the NFL, talent and confidence simply aren't enough. Rosen's story in the NFL is one of missed opportunities, tough situations, and unmet expectations. I don't believe it was all his fault. The Cardinals were a mess when he arrived, and the Dolphins weren't much better. But in the end, it's the NFL, and if you don't perform, there's always someone else waiting for their shot. This has been the Unlikely Success.